and I hate to use this phrase, but you get more value for money now. And I know people go, 10 grand for a 20. It is a camper, guys, all right? It is a camper. Please keep it safe because they are as rare as rocking horse poo. It's a Bobby Dazzler.
Oh,
All you're going to do is increase the value.
Hello. So over the last couple of months, some of you have been having a go at me because all I've been featuring is these brand new vans, which are all blingy, all shiny, but cost rather a lot of money. And they are out of quite a lot of people's budgets, mine included. So I did promise you that I was going to come down to cooler commercials, and that is exactly what I've done. So today we're looking at some more, which are more on the price sensitive nature. They're slightly less than the new ones which we've been looking at. So Steve, hello, welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me here.
Well, thank you for having me, basically. Yeah, I mean, well, we've seen a real surge in the sort of second-hand market. People haven't got £40,000 to spend, unfortunately. I'd love £40,000 to spend, and I'd like them to spend it with me, but tragically, that's not the market we've got anymore. So we've seen a big change in our market. You know, the cost of living's affected everyone. Pre-COVID, our market's changed completely. There isn't the free cash. There's not the government grants anymore. So we're looking at sort of 5, 6-year-old vans and beyond. We've seen a real surge in much older vans, stuff that's 10 years old, still very, very popular and affordable. We can't forget the fact that from the cab back, all the transporters from T5 on are pretty much the same. Yeah. So it was only the cab that changed, and some of the engines, as you know, with ULEZ, etc. So that's where the market seems to have gone lately. Really does. Good.
And the vans which obviously we've got in here, they are, you've actually got T6.1 at less than 20 grand.
Absolutely, yeah, I know. It's well, the price is dropping, you know, at the minute. We will see that price go up. Obviously, time of year plays a part. Yeah. We particularly buy well, but that's a little plug for me. But, but
well, to be honest with you, Steve, and I know obviously I am at Cooler, so some of you might think that I am going to say that, but I've always known you as you are that cost-effective buyer. You know, you do have, you know, whenever you're looking around at stock locally, your prices are always. Seems I don't want to say it, but it does seem too good to be true at some of the times we've had.
We've actually had people question if we were a scam because of our prices.
Because I'd never sell my van to you because you wouldn't give me enough money for it.
Oh, I would. But your new van would be cheaper. You got to swing some roundabouts, Steve. Yeah. You know how this works. Now, the way I've always pitched it is, for years, this was a side hustle for me. So we used to have to buy vans ourselves from other people and do them up and sell them, and eventually it grew. Obviously, the rest is history. And I was always loath to pay the scene tax. Yeah. And I was paying it. And I always vowed, in fact, Susie, my wife, said, if we're going to do this, we can't charge scene tax. We have to deliver the real cost, make a set profit, and away we go, and treat people how we would want to be treated. Yeah. And that's where I've always set my price in. And weirdly, it seems that my inclusive VAT price, which are all my screen prices, everyone else's plus VAT price. So it's kind of good, really. It's worked really well.
So how do you that though? Because obviously you've got to get your stock from somewhere. Yeah. So how do you get your vans?
Well, I buy really well. Obviously, I've been doing it a long time. Usual trade outlets, but I've got a lot of lease companies that I deal with direct. So we get the pick of the bunch. Yeah. We're very lucky. We're very blessed in how we source. So yeah, we do get some very good deals, which we pass on to everyone else. I'd sooner sell with a lower margin but higher volume all day long. Yeah. But we're coming away more from our retail pitch now. I'm doing more and more sourced vehicles. So you ring me up, you want a blue transporter, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. And I'll go away and find it specifically for you. And we do that for a lot of camper converters, a lot of local people, and a lot of people throughout the country. We do a lot with Lewis at Templar Way. Yeah, it's good for us, and you get the van you're looking for without all the hassle and all the travel. That's the big thing, because a lot of the good vans are way up country or in the southeast. So yeah, we're out on a limb, but that's the joys of living by the sea. And
I have seen on your Facebook post that I'm flying to Edinburgh today, I'm flying to Glasgow
today.
I
know. I look like a bit of a jet. So I'll tell you, those flights are cheap, man. Do you know what I mean? They're easy jet. I don't buy snacks. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to. Wherever the van is, I will go and find it.
And that's your source,
and I'll bring it back. Yeah, we found that the business, again, since COVID, you try stocking what everyone wants all of the time, it's really tough.
Yeah.
And as we buy transporters, and people have said, could you buy a car for my daughter or my son or whatever, you know, or I'd need a car for work, you know, I'm opting out the company car scheme. So gradually it's evolved, and the sourcing has become such a big part of that. And again, the cars aren't local, the vans aren't local. They could be anywhere.
Yeah.
A Ducato in Edinburgh, a Mercedes in Ipswich or wherever. We'll go and find it for you.
Yeah.
And it works really well. Plus the big thing, Steve, you know, I sound all corporate there, don't I? It's a day out for me, really. I get a day away. I don't get nagged.
But you mentioned some other brands there, but obviously VW.
Well, I mean, the clue is there. I mean, you may have noticed that. I mean, it's just kind of sprung there. We will illuminate it later. But yeah, obviously, cut our teeth on VW. It's been in my blood forever. And yeah, we are particularly good at those, particularly good at commercial ones of those, and even better at transporters. So yeah, that's where it's all come from. But it's just evolved from there, really. But yeah, and I think things will change, you know. We're seeing the bigger vans are starting to grow in popularity. I think we've all got a chiropractor nowadays, and smaller vans sometimes trouble us as we start to get a little older.
That's actually a conversation piece which I am going to be talking about more in the future, because people do seem to be, you know, going towards those bigger vans, the crafters, just to keep it VW-wise. It's kind of been a bit unsure of, are they going that way? Because at the moment, that's what a lot of conversion companies are converting, because they are moving away a bit from the Transporter, because they are looking to, I don't want to convert the Ford, and I'm going to ask you a bit more about that afterwards. So what else can we convert? So I know there's quite a few Mercedes Sprinter converters as well, but people do seem to be going for those bigger vehicles.
Absolutely. I think the demographic, we've all kind of got older, we've all moved on, you know. We all like to stand up and change now.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of us who aren't particularly practical aren't great with a pop top. Just not that dexterous, you know. I've got rheumatism, I've got an excuse. But so we want a bit more. We want, you know, whereas we used to go and crash in the van, we just needed a bed, we'd have a cassette cooker. We've got a bit more refined. You know, some of us have shopped in Waitrose. I bought a sandwich there once. I'm not allowed back in. I tried.
Bet your bank manager rang you up after
Absolutely
that,
not. It was.
What
it did have a yellow label, I've got to be honest. That was the only reason I got it by Sue's. And it was just plain cheese. But anyway, by the way, so we're seeing that people want a few more comfort. So the bigger vans are becoming more popular. And actually, price for price, they're about the same as the Transporters.
Yeah.
In terms of a daily driver, yeah, not so much. But people have moved on. They've got better jobs, maybe, a little bit more disposable income. They now have a purely dedicated leisure vehicle. And that's where the bigger van sales are coming.
Yeah. And that is that big difference, because I'd love a bigger vehicle, but that's my daily driver, and I couldn't have a crafter or anything like that as a daily driver because of the height restrictions, you know, some of the narrow lanes I go down. Yeah, you can go down narrow lanes, I do know that.
Of course you can.
But it's a bit more of a headache when you've got a nearly 6 metre vehicle travelling down the lane, and passing places are not quite as frequent.
And you go into a supermarket, and, you know, admittedly, I park miles out the way anyway, because I've got to try and get my steps up somehow. But equally, you know, with one of those, you are kind of restricted a little bit. You know, I know people do it, and it's fine. But day to day, you've got to think a bit more about driving it. Whereas these guys are kind of the same sort of wheelbase as a Passat. They fit in a space no matter where. And, you know, you can live with it. So I think that's the trade-off. But as people are perhaps looking to more of a dedicated leisure vehicle, that's where I've seen a real upsurge. Crafters, Sprinters, some French stuff. But, you know, you pay your money, you take your choice in terms of reliability and longevity. So I'm not here to.
And also residual values.
100%.
You know, these residuals. You know, you've got a 67 plate there at a good price.
Yep.
But if that was French, that wouldn't be beginning with a 2.
No, absolutely not. Equally, if it was from Dagenham or somewhere affiliated with there, it wouldn't be anywhere near that price. No. And, you know, I'm not saying it justifies it, but the badge counts for a lot. People say, oh, you know, you're paying for the badge. Well, actually, you kind of are, because you're paying for the engineering behind it. You're also paying for its residual value, you know, and they're great. We've got a T5 in here now. It's still at 10 grand. Yeah. Well, that's mad. It's 20 years old. Yeah. And I know people go, 10 grand for a 20. It is a camper, guys, all right? It is a camper. So before you start, it's not a panel van. But again, if that was an alternative manufacturer, it would be nowhere near that.
No,
You'd probably be eating your beans out of it.
Yeah.
You know, really,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. So they still got that kudos about them and that reliability.
So before we go on to the Dagenham brand and a couple of other things, we might even talk about electric.
Oh,
we will talk about petrol. I cannot leave here without talking about petrol.
Man, yeah.
But so how are you finding the market? You know, how are buyers at the moment? How is it, say, compared to last year or the year before, or how are you finding things?
Well, you know, we used to be able to call a season. I think that's the same in many industries. You could call a season. You go, yeah, I'm going to be real busy in March. I'm going to be real slow in August. Some of that has come back after COVID, but it has been super unpredictable for the last couple of years. This year, we've started to see a bit more of a return to seasonality, so a bit more predictable, a bit more easy for me to write a forecast, that's for sure. You wouldn't have thought I did that, would you? There you go. There's a nod to the corporate past. But, yeah, we're seeing there's less money to spend, obviously. Yeah. You're getting better value for money in the vans because prices have come down. They're now a sense, but they're not pre-COVID price, but they're not a million miles away. No. And you get, and I hate to use this phrase, but you get more value for money now. I would have said bang for your buck, but that's unacceptable for anyone to say that. So yeah, you are getting more value for money, and people expect more for it. Yeah. So it has changed in that respect. Prices have dropped, more value for money. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
And you still get people coming through the door?
Yeah, actually, we had a bit of a huge amount of people in the spring. A lot of trade from camper converters, obviously. Little lull in August, and now it's been mad because people want to get away, cash the last bits of summer. Wasn't really a summer, was there?
It seems it's
all right now,
doesn't it? Like, this last couple of minutes, it's here. It's a ride.
That. Well, you've got to be careful about light bounce, you know. So might need to powder up in a minute. But yeah, I mean, certainly footfall has increased again. But,
so that you've got the higher end, so 60, 70,000 pound vans. People have probably been turned off a little bit by them, and you've probably seen them coming through the door because they can spend a little bit less and get a decent van still.
Absolutely.
But like we've mentioned, the residuals, they might spend however much on a van, but they still know that in a year's time, 2 years' time, they're still going to have an element of value in that van. It's not going to take that huge depreciation, which your potential £70,000 van could.
Absolutely, and the great deal is that if you buy a panel van, all you're going to do is increase the value because you're going to put windows in it, you're going to put alloy wheels on it, you're probably going to colour code it if it's not been colour coded already. You're going to put a funky stereo in it and a rock and roll bed. You've got yourself a camper, or you've put seats in, it's a combi. Yeah. You've gone from a straight panel van with a straight panel van value to a converted van, which now suddenly is, you've probably put 10, or if you've done a camper, you've probably put another 20 grand on it. You know, potentially, maybe not that much. It does depend the type of conversion you've done, but you've certainly increased the value. There's not many vehicles you can do that with.
No.
So
then, I know in the higher value vehicles, there are some people getting a little bit squeaky bum time at the minute, thinking, what is going to be happening with the business? You know, obviously we've got a lot of mouths to feed and things. I'm guessing at this kind of level, it seems to be ticking over quite nicely. It's not, you've not got those big concerns.
No, not at all, because stock value's a little lower. We're in a marketplace, or a market space, should I say, where we do get a regular turnover. It's achievable, this. You can take a personal loan, not ridiculous car finance. And you can fund this, go and have your fun, and know it's a safe gamble, as gambles can be. I know that's an oxymoron itself, but I mean, you know it's going to hold a certain amount of value, and it will be quite a big proportion, if not all of its value. So you look at the people pre-COVID who bought a camper and then made an absolute bucket load of money, just the way the market goes. But you know, a year, 18 months down the line, even if it's a straight panel van that you just put alloys on, it's going to retain its value. It won't lose much. As I say, my 20-year-old example speaks for itself. You know, we've got a T4 down there that's still 5 grand.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's a 21-year-old van. It's a cool 21-year-old van, but it's still 5 grand.
And it's not going to drop much more than that. It can't drop much more than that.
No, it's done its
money. You know, you can see some sheds for maybe 3.5, 4, but they're sheds. You know, they're real sheds, and it's still got some value in it.
Absolutely.
So if somebody's going to buy 5 grand on something like that, you're not going to lose it. Whereas if you bought a car of that value, well, it is going to.
It'll only go one way. You know, recently I was running an Audi. I lost 2 grand on it. and I'm trade.
Yeah.
I lost $2,000 on it because it's a car.
Yeah.
I'm now in a combi. I put $4,000 on it by what I've done to it.
Yeah.
It's madness. But the T4, you mentioned the shed there, $3,500 shed. Actually, still buy it if that's all you've got.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
$3,500, get it welded, drive it around a bit ratty, gradually do it up,
Yeah.
turn it into a camper, and who knows what you can get. But I've seen them go for $9,000, you know, which is crazy money.
Yeah.
I know it is. But even if you get back 5, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You're not going to do that with a Mondeo or, you know, any other car.
No,
are
you're
you
just
know?
not.
Mondeo's a terrible example, but you know what I mean.
We'll come on to that blue badge.
I
in
mentioned
a
the
minute.
name again, didn't I?
I know you did.
Oh,
we
my
are
gosh.
going to have to discuss
I
it.
mean, yeah,
But there's a few other things which you can just mention there.
Of course.
EV. I don't want to talk about EV. Let's not bother talking about EV because
We can be really quick.
I mean, let's take the. I tell you what, I've got a great idea. This is
Go
where
on.
we'll talk about
Go
EV.
on.
Right. The VW ABT Transporter, the
Yep.
e-Transporter.
Yep.
I've got an idea with them.
Okay.
They are. The bottom's gone out of them. Absolutely gone. I mean, we were seeing them probably last year for about 13, 15 grand or something. You're like,
Yeah.
wow, that's
Less than
cheap.
that now.
We are now seeing them for like less than 10 grand.
Way less.
So I'm watching them and I want to see them drop a little bit more, and I fancy buying one. And I don't fancy, because I know people are doing the RS4 and the RS3s and stuff like that, and fantastic, I like that. What I'd want to do is put something in there which is completely different. So something which is not from the Viper.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I thought about
Mix
the
it
Porsche,
up.
you know, you could get a Porsche engine and stick it in there, like the hybrid, to make it
Very
a little bit
nice.
more hybrid and more eco-friendly.
Very
things.
nice.
And it was actually this morning when I was travelling to football to take my son to football, I actually thought, I wonder if some fabricator could put an Alfa, like Giulietta,
what a
Giulia
dream.
Quadrifoglio engine in it.
Oh, no,
So they
now we're
could. I
talking.
mean,
Now we're
there's
talking.
surely you must be able to do something like that.
You've got to be able to.
So you buy the
surely.
van for £5,000.
Yeah.
Actually, that lump's probably going to be quite expensive. But something similar to that, and then you've got an amazing Transporter base van. Yeah, I do know that everything. You would need everything: brake, suspension,
Wow.
fuel. It's going to need a fuel tank to start with.
A massive fuel.
But you could probably, for 25 grand, get a spanking good vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
With a really, really good engine, which is going to travel more than 50 miles.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you're lucky. That's if it's warm. And there's just you. And don't put the aircon on, for goodness sake. You'd be crazy to do that. I reckon you should put an LS block in it.
Yeah?
Yeah, V8. Let's go for it. If you're going to do it, do it. But you'd have to keep the van because you would make it almost unsellable.
Yes.
That's the problem. It'd be crazy. It'd be so much fun. It would sound amazing. But yeah, the market's somewhat limited for those, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, I think that'd just be,
Yeah. I
that'd
think
be
it'd
different. It
cool.
will be different.
Yeah.
And
Or
yeah.
a cheap diesel van.
Yeah.
Buy a 2 litre TDI
Oh, that's
engine,
been
put it
sensible.
back in.
That's been too sensible.
I was
that,
being
isn't it?
way too sensible,
Yeah,
but
it's way too
yeah, that's the
sensible.
cheap. Let's go with
Yeah.
it. Let's go with the LS.
So now
brake
let's
motor.
talk about the petrols, because
Okay, yeah, let's talk about
when I
those.
first found out about you, when I first knew about you, which is probably a couple of years ago now, it was the petrols. It was always seeing, actually on the Facebook groups and things, if you want a petrol engine, you go and see Steve at Cooler Commercials.
Yeah.
And people were travelling all over the country because you were
absolutely.
dealing with quite a lot of them.
We were so lucky. We managed to get hold of some really large batches of them, and yeah, we had so much fun with those, man, live. When the first one turned up, it was just a real plain white panel van, a bit rough around the edges. And the driver brought it in from the wonderful Mascot Logistics, and he said, "This is something special. It's really quiet." I'm like, well, that's because it's petrol, is it? I'm like, oh my God. No, and he said, "No, I've not filled it up. You're all right. It was only messing." Yeah, it was super quiet. It was the first thing you noticed. And he said, "Can't take it down the road." It's only the standard 150 brake. Obviously, they were software restricted.
Yes.
I drove it down the road. Oh my God, it's like a flying machine. Oh, this is amazing. And I already knew. I'd seen some of the forums. I've seen some of the posts. I've spoken to a few people about mapping them. Well, out the box, 300 brake.
Yeah.
Who's not going to do that, you know? Well, actually, I'll tell you who's not going to do it. Me again, because actually, I didn't stop there. I went completely mad on the first one that we did. And we had ridiculous brake horsepower, you know, north of 350. I think we did a gearbox. I think we did 3 clutches, 2 lots of drive shafts. all within about an 8-week period. Susie went bananas. And my wife, she said, look, this has got to go, all right? I think I might have to before you bankrupt the entire family. But the smile on my face, you know, I knew it got out of control when I was doing some ridiculous speeds past IKEA. I mean, man, grow up. Grow up. So
there is, I mean, that is very, very niche. It is niche,
yeah.
but it's a market that's there. People do like the TSIs.
There's only approximately 500 made, I believe. I might be wrong on that, you know. But we recently did a search for TSI T28s, and there was only 400 and something, late 400s, can't remember the exact figure, alive, still running around. There'll be a few T30s. I mean, anyone out there, if you've got a TSG tailgate TSI, please keep it safe, because they are as rare as rocking horse poo. They really, truly are. That is the one to have. You've got that, mad. But any TSI, superb. And yeah, they can be a bit thirsty. And the only reason that is because of the weight of that foot, to be honest. It's so tempting.
The emotion, the sound, it's just everything about it, isn't it?
But I always used to justify it this way, and Simon next door does, and that's a van for another video. But no DPF issues, no EGR issues, absolutely ideal for town, doesn't soot up, but the noise.
But for me, that's now taking me away from that. I've got my van as a daily driver. I get 38 miles per gallon or something out of my 140. I'm not going to be getting anywhere near that, because that is going to be too heavy and wanting to hear the noise and feel that emotion every time I got in it. So
there is that.
It's not a daily driver for me, unfortunately.
Although my last one would have been, and it was my daily driver for a considerable amount of time. My last one converted to a combi, Indian grey. It's now a camper in the hands of the lovely Dean. And that one was mapped to 250. So it had plenty of power, but a really smooth delivery. And it wasn't that thirsty. On a run, we used to get 36. So it's not bad for a 250 brake horsepower van that weighs quite a bit. So it's not all bad news.
No.
They are fun.
Yeah, I do fancy one.
Maybe. I know of one coming up for sale soon.
Don't.
It's a Bobby Dazzler.
Oh, don't.
It really is, actually. It's a really rare spec. That's a tailgate as well.
Is it?
I'm not here to sell vans.
Maybe coming to a channel near you.
Absolutely.
But what also could be coming to a channel near you, or might not be coming to a channel. Let's talk about it. We're going to have to do it.
No, it's coming.
What do you think?
It's that chat.
The future. Now, obviously, it has just been announced, which is the new Transporter. It's
Transporter.
It's not the T7. They are not calling it the T7. The Alliance. What do you think about it? What do you think the future is going to hold for it?
Well, we've got to look to the past, haven't we? Really, to see the future in this one, because think Ford Galaxy, Seat Alhambra, and I'll pronounce it wrong, but I still call it the VW Sharon. We've been there. We've been there.
Yeah.
It was all right. It worked okay. It rubbed along all right. It wasn't very exciting.
No.
And there wasn't a lot between the two. Well, in that case, between the three. The same will be said of the Transit Porter. So, I mean, it's going to sell. It's quite a smart looking van, you know, not to be ignored.
Do you know what? And I can't believe I'm actually going to say this. I'm actually going to say it though. I actually think the Transit looks better than the Transporter. And I know I've just said it, but it's just the ones which they've announced at Dusseldorf. They've had the 3 on show. That I like the Parent Americana.
Yeah.
I do like that. But I just think some of the lines on the Transit actually look nicer than they do on the Transporter. But I've not seen it in the flesh, and I think that is going to be, you know, a big thing when I do see it in the flesh.
I agree. But I think with the Transit, certainly because I'm elderly, I remember the Mark 1s and Mark 2 Transits from my childhood. And if you look carefully at the new Transit, there is a huge amount of nods towards the design of that. In fact, it's pretty cool how they've done it. But that's a Ford-based nod.
Yeah.
Now, whether that translates easily to the VW, I'm not sure. I quite like the photos. I do quite like the look of the panel van. I don't like the back end. I think from a commercial point of view, in terms of business users, they want to carry stuff. The back looks quite low.
Yeah.
But obviously, it does on the Transit.
Yeah.
So whether that's an issue, I don't know. You know, we'll have to wait and see. I think what we are going to see, the future will give the 6.1 and the 6 is a huge increase in desirability and of course cost. So I think we'll see a price surge on those because they are true VWs, and that's how the purists will see it. I think in time we will see a pure VW, you know, in whatever guise, but I think it will be a pure VW longer term, as we did with the Galaxy, the Alhambra and the Sharon. So I think it's a phase we're going through, and I think we'll all adapt to it. We'll all customise it. We'll all grow to love it. Everyone moaned about the 6.1, the 6 and the 5. So it's just evolution, not revolution, I guess.
It is evolution, but at the same time it is revolution. Because
I suppose.
When you've gone from the 4 to the 5 and the 5 to the 1 and the 6 and the 6.1, it's still been VW.
Pure.
And this is VW because it is built by VW Volkswagen staff. But it's not. It's built in Turkey on the line next to the Ford. It is a Ford engine. I think it is different, but you're going to have two different sorts of buyers, and there's a massive element in the room here which neither of us have mentioned yet. There's different buyers, and there's people who want to buy a van and they're not bothered about that. But then you've got people like us who have got that badge to heart. We know what it's about. We know all the history about it, and we're probably not going to buy the Ford, but we probably will be more tempted to buy the VW. But the massive thing that is the negative at the moment is that wet belt engine.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm of mixed thought about this because you think, right, well, VW have obviously knowingly got into bed with Ford with this. Ford have produced that engine. It's had problems. They won't admit it. There is problems. So surely they've rectified them. But it's a difficult situation, isn't it? Because they can't say, well, hang on a minute, don't worry about the wet belt engine because we've changed it now. Because if they say that, then there's massive problems with all the ones where they've said, nah, there's nothing wrong with it. It's you're not serviced them properly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they must have changed it.
As we move forward, Christ, it's really going to be a sales prevention tool if they haven't changed it, or if there isn't an enormous warranty that gives people, you know, some sort of peace of mind. I certainly would be very reluctant to take one on a 3, 4, 5 year PCP or a finance deal, knowing that the ticking time bomb was still in there. We're talking, you know, potentially twin turbo transporter situation, EGR cooler. Would you buy one? And you know the later ones are better, right? Or one that's just been done. I think the trust is lost. So I think that's going to be a real hard one to get over.
And that's, I mean, I've done a few videos now on Transits and the new Transporter, and the comments are just flooded with wet belt engine, won't buy it. And
totally
other derogatory remarks about Ford. And I think that is a big hurdle for VW to get over. And I know VW are concentrating on the California, which I personally love, which is on the Multivan platform, so completely different, purely Volkswagen. But until that comes out over here, we're yet to really see how that's going to happen. And you've got converters who are not going to be touching that platform because it's a passenger vehicle. You know, you don't want to be, well, they probably do want to be, but they can't really afford to buy a passenger vehicle at, what do they start at, 60 odd grand?
It's not really
and
a base
then
van.
you're going to put, it's not a base van, is it? It's not the 20 grand panel van, which we had 4 years ago.
Exactly. And I think that's going to be a real toughie for them. So that's why I'm fairly convinced that they'll see that at some point and say, you know what, guys, we've got to do something here. That void we need to fill. Because where are you going to go? Where are you going to go for a small van? You know, it's just not going to work, is it? These are going to up in value. There you go, see, second-hand VW Transporters.
Second-hand VWs.
An investment for the future.
Absolutely.
Boom.
That is the place to be. So these brand new vans, which I'm going to be bringing you in about 3 weeks' time for the NEC show, they're too expensive. No, they're not. If you've got the budget to buy a brand new van, which if I did, I would be buying a brand new van because I do absolutely love them. But if you've not, like most of us, then explore the used vans. And like Steve here, he's got lots of stock, well-priced stock, lots of variety. It's a way of getting into the van life, the outdoor lifestyle scene. I know for a fact at the show there's going to be lots of vans which you will not have seen before, lots of new conversions. So if you can't get to the show yourself, then make sure you do subscribe and look out for that video which will be coming out. Anyway, thanks to Steve for having me here today. Thanks for you for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.